Okay, so first I'll begin with the explanation of project work I have given to you. I hope all of you would have got that file I have circulated in the Google Classroom, and the message was also posted in the WhatsApp group. Just give me a 1 minute. I am sharing that file with you over here on the screen. Though all the instructions are explicitly given over here, still, in order to avoid any sort of a confusion, I'm just giving you the further clarification. See, every one of you have got a different data to work upon. So please take care of it. No one will be able to copy anyone's work in this. That's the first one. Now, a second instruction is that you should do it in the Excel file. Now, many of you might not have the access to computer. It's perfectly okay. You may calculate this manually as well. And if you're doing it manually, then you will put the PDF file of your work in that submission form. The link of the submission form is also given to you where you are supposed to submit it. The last date for the submission is 15th of July 2021. So again, I'm telling that you have two options. Either you can do it with the help of Excel. If you can't arrange the computer, that's perfectly okay. You may do it manually on the paper and put the PDF in the submission form. Now, let me just give you that what you are supposed to do in this. You are required to calculate ARR, accounting rate of return, payback period, discounted payback period, NPV, IRR, and MIRR from whatever the details you have got. Now, let's take the first example. Say to Mr. Saket, the project work allocated is having the useful life of 15 years. You may just check it in the first column. Then required rate of return from a project is 22%. Then cash outflow in year number 0. When I use the word year number 0, that means the discounting factor should be taken 1, wherever there will be a requirement of discounting. Year 0 means it's already a present value. Please do not forget that. Year 1 and year 2. Then cash inflow is given to you only in a one column. But one care you will have to take over here is, friends, though cash inflow is not given to you for all the years of useful life, but there is a growth rate given to you. Check over here. What is the meaning of growth rate? On a yearly basis, you will increase your cash inflow by this percentage. So whatever the cash inflow you have got for the first year, for the second year, you will increase it by 2.59% in case of Mr. Saket. In case of Mr. Harsh, he will increase it by 2.1%. I hope that's clear to everyone. So you will get the cash inflows of all the years of your useful life. Say useful life of the project is 15 years, you will find the cash inflows for all the 15 years. I hope you are getting my point. Then the scrap value is given to you, working capital requirement is given to you. I have already discussed it while solving the question of NPV. The lectures are also uploaded. You can see over there what was the treatment of working capital and the scrap value. And if you have any question or doubt, you can any point of time reach out to me, definitely without any hesitation, right? Acha, one more complication is that you have got the cash income, then the depreciation amount is also given to you, and the cash inflow is given to you. Now to find the ARR, which is the accounting rate of return, the formula of ARR looks like PAT divided by book value of investment, right? Now we take the average PAT of all the years and average book value of investment for all the years. So while finding the book value of investment, the depreciation amount will be required to you. Because on year to year basis, there will be a depreciation charge. No, on a yearly basis, you will get a different book value of your project. Similarly, profit after tax is not given to you. So earlier, when we were solving the question of ARR and the NPV, you can recall it, the formula I told you to find the CI. If the profit after tax was given to you, then we were adding back non-cash income in that, right? Then from there, we were reducing the non-cash income and we were adding back the depreciation in that. If you can recall it, please. Depreciation was added back in the profit after taxes and non-cash incomes were reduced from the profit after taxes. So you were getting the cash inflow. Now you have got the cash inflow, you have got the depreciation, you have got the non-cash income. So you can find the profit after tax from that detail, no? It's just a reverse process you will have to do. Earlier in the profit after tax, you were adding the depreciation. Now from the cash inflow, you will reduce the depreciation and you will add the non-cash income. So you will get profit after tax. I hope that sounds pretty clear to everyone. Just a reverse process you will have to do. Earlier in the questions, we were finding the CI and we were using this formula. What was the formula? Telling you again. PAT minus non-cash income plus depreciation. So you were getting the CI. Here you have got the CI in this question, which is the cash inflow on a yearly basis. Depreciation is also given. Non-cash income is also given. So you can find the PAT by applying the reverse formula. Anyway, let's move ahead. So this will be your ARR. And one more thing. If you are doing it in the Excel, you will not be using directly the formula of MIRR or IRR or NPV by default formulas of Excel. No. Big no for this. I am saying you that you will be using the Excel. That means you will do the manual calculations in the Excel. You will find the discounting factors. You will find the PVs. Whatever you are doing in the on paper exercise, same way you will be doing in the Excel. But yes, you may cross verify your manual answer by applying the formula of MIRR. Just apply the formula of MIRR by putting your data somewhere and find it out that whether your manual answer is matching with your MIRR formula or not. Because you would have observed that for MIRR, for IRR and for NPV, you have got a formula, by default formula in the Excel. You will not be using that, otherwise it would be too easy, you know. You just put the cash inflows and outflow, you get the answer. No, you will do the manual calculations in the Excel. I hope you are able to understand. When I say manual calculations, that means whatever the tables you are preparing on manual basis on your pen paper exercises, same thing will be prepared over here too in the Excel. But yes, you can definitely cross verify your answer by applying the inbuilt formulas of Excel. I hope that sounds clear to everyone. That's all about the project. Is there any confusion or doubt related to a project? May I have a confirmation that it's pretty much understood to everyone now? Good. So there is no doubt. अच्छा, कुछ कुछ लोग यस बोल रहे, कुछ नो बोल रहे. मालूम नहीं यस को मैं कैसे इंटरप्रेट करूं, नो को कैसे करूं. ठीक है, नो वाले हैं वो ऐसे होंगे कि सर डाउट नहीं है, और यस वाले हैं वो वैसे होंगे सर क्लियर है. अच्छा ठीक है, गुड, नाइस, नाइस टू सी. And I'm always available for you guys, huh? Definitely. So at any point of time, if you face any problem, if you're unable to get anything, please let me know immediately. Okay. Let's move ahead to the content of today now. Module number 4, dividend decision making. Okay, let me just share the screen. Now the name of this module is dividend decisions. You can find the detailed explanation of all the concepts as well as the questions we are going to solve at page number 593 in the Prasanna Chandra book. This book is already circulated to all of you, so you may go through that. If you wanna get the detailed explanation of all the concepts. Let's go to a dividend decision making. Now let's understand what is this dividend first of all. Sir, whatever the amount we pay from the profit after taxes to the shareholders is called as the dividend. Whatever the amount we pay to shareholders from the profit after taxes is called as the dividend. It can also be said like it is the distribution of a portion of company's earnings. Company has earned something after making payment to government in terms of taxes, in terms of salaries to employees, in terms of every other expenses to everyone, outsiders as well as insiders. Whatever the profits are left, company is left with two choices. Choice number one, either to distribute that money as a dividend or to retain that money in terms of reserves and surpluses. Now, if company pays the dividend, that means company will pay the cash to shareholders. So cash balances will get reduced. And if company decides to transfer it to reserves and surplus, now that will be on a liability side. Now, in one of the placement drive, there was one question asked to one student who was appearing for the interview. That fellow asked a very fundamental question that he said, why reserves and surpluses are shown in the liability side of financial statements? Can someone tell me the answer of this? That was asked to one fellow in one placement drive of, I guess, TCS, if I'm not wrong. Can someone tell me the answer of this? Why reserves and surpluses are shown in the liability side of financial statements? Will anyone? You may answer it to me in the chat box. You may unmute yourself. Because the dividend we don't pay is our liability. Understood, Mr. Vishal, but why it is a liability? It's shareholders' asset. It's shareholders' fund. Understood? It's a shareholders' fund. Then why you put shareholders' fund in a liability side? See, as far as the dividend is concerned, Miss Devanshi as well as Miss Priska, dividend is always recommendatory in nature. Company may pay the dividend, company may not pay the dividend. If company decides not to pay the dividend, then it's okay, fine. It may keep it as a reserves and surplus. Good. There is a one concept of separate legal identity. Good. Somewhere near close to the right answer I'm getting from Miss Urja, because she's saying that because if we are not distributing as dividend, then it will remain with us as a liability to reinvest it. Okay. Somewhat near to right answer. Mr. Mohit is saying that, sir, it's shareholders' money and company and shareholders are different person. Absolutely correct. That is the very true correct answer. The answer to that question was that, sir, company is different from the shareholders. That was the very simple answer that fellow you was supposed to give. But he couldn't give. I was there in front of him only. And he lost a major job opportunity there. Company is different from its owners. Company has got a separate legal identity. Company can initiate the law proceedings. Company can file the lawsuits on its own name. Company can purchase the properties on its own name. That is the reason that money is supposed to be paid to the owners. Even though they are owners, company is a distinct, separate legal identity. That's why it's there on a liability side. Well, So we were there into a liability side. Many of you have given the right answers. Nice to see that all of you are very active. Now, sir, where are the problems in the dividend decision making? It should be simple, no? Whether to pay the dividend or not to pay the dividend. Why we are making too much complicated? We are making it complicated. It is difficult because it has some repercussions. It has some grave consequences. Let me tell you the consequences of not distributing the dividend and consequences of distributing the dividend. Try to understand. Let's take, you do not distribute any dividend. Now what happens generally, that dividend paying stocks are taken positively by investors in the market. If you pay the dividend, that is a sign of reputation. So many shareholders invest in the stocks with the expectations of some good amount of dividend. And if you are unable to satisfy their expectations in terms of dividend, then it may have a repercussions. Expectations of shareholders will not be satisfied, and company may face some problems in terms of reduction in the market prices of the shares. Number two, if company decides to pay the dividend, then what are the consequences? Now company will be left with less amount of cash. Now whatever the dividend you are distributing, obviously you are not transferring to that reserves and surplus, right? That means company will be left with less amount of funds. And if company will be left with less amount of funds, for the future expansion and maintenance purposes of the company will not have the sufficient amount of funds. There are various ratios which are dependent on how much reserves and surpluses companies are possessing. And those ratios are considered by investors while investing in the company. Let me give you one simple example of one ratio. Say a price to book value ratio. Give me a 30 seconds, please. I need to put this on a charge. Okay, so there is one ratio called market price to book value ratio. Now market price of the share is independent of whatever the book values and financial statements are concerned. But definitely, if the fundamentals of the companies gets changed, then market price will be affected, because we assume that the investors are rational enough to take these decisions. Market price is basically derived in a market by demand and supply forces. Higher and higher there will be a demand from the people, higher and higher the prices will be there. It's as good as the haraji you do in your marketing yard. So fruits की हराजी होती है, vegetables की हराजी होती है, वैसे ही शेयर्स की भी हराजी होती है, उसे ही हम मार्केट प्राइस कहते हैं. बट ऐसा जरूरी नहीं कि जो फ्रूट हम 150 में परचेस करें वो उतना वैल्यू पोजेस करता हो. जो vegetable, say if we are a trader of vegetables, if whatever the vegetables we purchase at 80, it does not necessarily require to be the value of that vegetable, because market price is a demand and supply forces. That particular vegetable may not be worth 80 rupees. Now that's what apply to shares as well. Now say the market price of the share is 100 rupees and there is a book value of the share. Now book value of the share is the accounting term. It's basically equity capital plus reserves and surplus divided by number of shares. So reserves and surplus are basically the money gathered by a company over a period of time. The money which is not distributed as a dividend will be kept as a reserves and surplus. There are various other sources as well for reserves and surpluses. You issue your equity capital at a premium. That securities premium is a part of reserves and surplus. You create some mandatory reserves and surplus is required for that company as per the Companies Act 2013. That is also part of reserves and surpluses. So equity plus reserves and surplus divided by number of shares. Now that will be a book value. I may also say that it is the accounting value of each share. Now if I divide 100 by this accounting value of each share, that means 100 divided by 50, then my book value reaches to 10. Now many investors takes the decision based on this book value, based on this PB ratio. This is called as the PB ratio, price to book value ratio. If this ratio is low, it is considered as a good thing. It is considered as the undervaluation of a company, and people will start investing in that company. If this ratio is too high, people will find this stock overvalued. So you tell me, if reserves and surpluses will not be there, if reserves and surpluses will not be there, then the book value will be less. If the book value will be less in the denominator, then the PB ratio will be very high. And if the PB ratio will be very high, there will be a consequences on the market price. So if you distribute a dividend, then your reserves and surpluses will be less, or I mean it will not be added. And if you do not distribute the dividend, then you will not be able to satisfy the requirements of the shareholders. So it's a dilemma. We are on the verge of either a collapse or getting some really good rewards. What to do? That problem was identified by various financial experts, and they had built certain models. Some are very primitive models, very easy to understand, but then some of the models were very advanced models, which were developed by doing the research of thousands of companies. So from there, the dividend decision starts. First decision a company will have to take is whether to pay the dividend or not. It does not stop over here. Once you decide that yes, we are supposed to pay the dividend, then how much dividend to be paid? How much dividend to be paid? And if we pay the dividend at this magnitude, then what will be the impact on market price of the share? This is all about dividend decision making. So if someone asks you what is a dividend decision making, first of all, it will involve whether to pay the dividend or not. Number 2 decision, how much to pay the dividend. Number 3, to estimate and measure the impact of dividend on the market price. And there will be impact of non-payment of dividend as well on the market price. It will be a vice versa, you know. There will be impact on market price on the payment of dividend too, and on the non-payment of dividend as well. Well, let's go to various factors which affects the dividend decision making, and then we'll move to these models which will help us to identify the exact quantum of dividend that we should distribute to maximize our market price. Majority of the decisions in the financial management are taken to satisfy one primary objective, that is to maximize the wealth of shareholders. When I say maximizing the wealth of shareholders, that means maximizing the share price. Generally, that is the meaning of maximization of wealth. Now, what can be done so that shareholders' wealth will be maximized? What amount of dividend should be paid? Whether to pay the dividend or not, so that share price will get maximized. This is what our analysis will be, what are the various factors which affects the dividend policy? First one is the type of industry. Now, on the basis of industry to industry, the dividend policy may differ. Now, if you take some of the IT stocks, they pay a good amount of dividend. Now, some public sector undertakings have also started paying a good amount of dividends in India. So, it is always specifically expected by the shareholders that if I invest in such kind of a stock, then I'll get the dividend. Some of the industries are not known for making the good amount of dividend, paying the good amount of dividend. Some manufacturing industries, some agricultural produce industries do not pay much amount of dividend. Generally, that is a perception among the shareholders because historically they might have observed. Now, some of the industries are very capital incentive industries, you know. If I tell you, if I just distribute industry into two parts, one is manufacturing, another one is service. Now, what happens is that if the company wants to expand its business, its machineries, its equipments, its assets, then the investment will be too high in manufacturing concern as compared to service concern. If you are establishing a CA firm, it would hardly be requiring some amount of assets. By just 2 to 3 lakhs rupees, you will be able to establish that office and you will start practicing. But that's quite difficult if you are establishing a manufacturing concern, right? Because in that, the fixed asset investment is too high. So if company wants to expand further in the upcoming years, then company will require good amount of money in manufacturing concern, but in service concern, the expansion money is not that much as compared to manufacturing concern. So service company may afford to give the dividend to the shareholders if they do not have many expansion programs. But manufacturing concern cannot afford to give good amount of dividends to shareholders if they want to expand in future, because that will be requiring too much of capital investment from their side. So type of industry also affects whether to pay the dividend and up to what extent to pay the dividend. Ownership structure. Now, ownership structure is basically the capital structure, mix of debt and equity. Now, my friends, what happens is that, say, if you have taken too much of debt from other people, then banks and financial institutions may put a restriction on you to not pay the dividend in a higher amount. Because, say, if you have taken too much of debt in your capital structure, that means your leverage is too high. Your financial risk is too high. If your one of the years will be bad, you will struggle to take the expense of interest. So in that case, if you have good reserves and surpluses, then you will be able to afford in the bad 2-3 years to pay the interest to banks and financial institutions. But you will not be in a position to distribute the dividend in that case, you know. Because if you have taken the higher debt, then the banks and financial institutions want some security in terms of your reserves. So what ownership structure you have? But you have just the equity, not much of debt. That means you do not have any fixed obligation. Even if your 2 to 3 years are going bad in terms of business, then also you won't have any fixed obligation to pay because you haven't taken a debt. So in that case, you may afford to pay the dividend to equity shareholders. So what's your debt to equity ratio? What capital structure you have? How much debt and equity you have taken in your capital structure? That also affects your dividend decision making. Age of corporation. You people are aware that, right? There is something called product life cycle. There may be a life cycle for a company too. Some of the companies may be at the expansion stage in the initial year. So at that time, they require more amount of money for their expansion. In the initial years of the startups, they want the money to expand their operations further, right? Because they have started this startup with a limited amount of cash. And you know how hard and difficult it is to seek the money from the people, right? So in the initial years, you may not expect much amount of dividend from a company because they want to expand further. But then at the saturation stage, the company may pay a very good amount of dividend. Then at the diminishing stage of a company, many of the experts believe that company should pay as much as dividend possible. When the company is not doing good, company should not keep the money with themselves. I'll tell you the logical explanation behind it. If the company is not doing good at the time of diminishing stage, it is always preferred to distribute the surplus amount to shareholders in terms of dividend, because you as a company, you are unable to satisfy their expectations. So it's better to distribute the dividend. So what is the age of corporation? Whether it is a newly established startup, or it is at a saturation stage, or it's a very, very old company, or it is at the downward stage now, say the Parle biscuits. The amount of sales is continuously falling since last many number of years. And accordingly, the dividend payment will differ. Different expectations of income. Now see, shareholders get two types of income, right? One is the dividend, and another one is increase in market price. But both are inversely proportionate to each other. That means both have inverse relationship with each other. If you increase the dividend, then market price will get affected adversely, negatively. And if you reduce the dividend or you do not pay the dividend, then market price will get increased. There is a logical, mathematical reason behind it. You do not distribute the dividend, that money will be kept by a company. And if that money will be kept by a company, that means company will have the more reserves and surpluses. If company will have more reserves and surplus, then the book value of company's share will get increased. And if the book value of a share gets increased, then investors will see that that book value is increased. So accordingly, there may be a higher demand in the market as well for those particular shares. But if the company pays the dividend, say from the reserves and surplus they have paid the dividend, that means the book value will reduce. And if the book value of a company will reduce, then the PB ratio will go too high. That will be a sign of overvaluation. Investors may start selling the shares. So what kind of expectations shareholders have? Some shareholders may have the expectations of increment in market price. They are growth shareholders, the companies which are basically focusing on increment of market price instead of paying the dividend, they are called as the growth companies. Now, possibly due to some taxation benefits too, investors' preference may vary, Earlier, the dividend amount was not taxable up to 10 lakhs rupees. But since the last budget, the finance minister has stated that now the dividend amount distributed by any company will also be taxable in the hands of shareholders. But earlier, up to 10 lakhs rupees, dividend was not taxable to the shareholders. But the market price of the share, if that is increased and if you sell the shares to some other people, then there was a capital gains tax on it. So investors will prefer not to increase the market price, but to get the amount of dividend in terms of cash. Why? Because if they receive the dividend, then they will not have to pay the tax. So if there is a tax discrimination between these two income, One is the dividend income and the increment in market price. Then also, my friends, the preference of investors will differ, and accordingly, company will have to take the decision. Then it's a leverage. Leverage is again basically related to the capital structure only. Leverage is the fixed obligation you have taken, operating leverage as well as the financial leverage. Now, ownership structure takes into account the financial leverage, but it does not take into account the operating leverage. Here in leverage, we are discussing about every type of leverage. So all the kind of fixed obligations you have taken in terms of rent expenses, in terms of any of the maintenance and repairs kind of a contract where you have given the fixed amount of money already, that is a burden on you. And if you have too much of leverage in your company, then you may not be able to distribute the dividend. Why? Because if one of the year goes bad, then from where you will be taking the money? You have taken so much of leverage. If you have sufficient and enough reserves and surpluses, then you will not be facing the bankruptcy. Otherwise, you will go bankrupt at that time. Future financial requirement and reinvestment opportunities. In future, what company wants to expand, what they want to do, obviously, accordingly, they will require money. The extent of share distribution. Now say there is the earning available for equity of 10 lakhs and number of shares are 1 lakh. So EPS, earning per share, will be 10 rupees, right? Now, even if you pay 50% of EPS as a dividend, then also there will be a 5 rupees of dividend. But instead of 1 lakh number of shares, say if you just have 10,000 shares. So 10 lakhs rupees of your earning available to equity divided by say 10,000 shares. Let me cancel the zeros. That means your EPS would be 100 rupees. Now from 100 rupees, if you decide to give 50% as the dividend, then 50 rupees will be a dividend, no? So how many number of shares of company are floating in the market? That also decides the amount of quantum of dividend. If they will have too many number of shares floating in a market, then the per share dividend will be less. But if they will have less number of shares floating in a market, then the per share dividend amount may be very high. So extent of share distribution, that will also affect the magnitude of your dividend. Changes in government policies. I have stated this to you repetitively. Earlier, there was a dividend distribution tax. That means the company which were distributing the dividend, no, were supposed to pay the tax on it. It was exempted in the hands of shareholders if it was lesser than 10 lakhs rupees. Now, from the last budget, this dividend distribution tax was completely eliminated. Now, companies won't have to pay the tax on it. Now, shareholders may not prefer to get the dividend. You know, they would prefer to get the increment in market price. Why? Because if they receive a dividend, now they will have to pay the dividend income tax on it. So if the government policies gets changed, some legal legislation changes occur, that will obviously have the impact on dividend policies. Profitability. How much profit percentage you have, that also affects your dividend amount. You know, if you have a really good, nice profit percentages, then you know that you have got a good margin of profitability. Even if you do some less amount of sales, your profitability margin is very good. From 100 rupees of sales, if you are able to generate 40 rupees of profit, then you are quite assured that even if you will do the less amount of sales in upcoming years, you will have the enough profit to run your company because your profit percentage is very high. In some of the industries, the profit percentage is very high, specifically, you know, the snacks and all such sort of things. Profit percentages may be somewhere around 40 to 50 percentages as well in the snacks industry. Now that depends on the level of distribution and wholesale network you are operating. Obviously, for retailers, it would be the highest. But in some of the industries, the profitability percentage is not good. Like if you take some of the examples of necessities, cooking oil, profit percentages would be quite less. Trends in a profit. Sometimes what happens that it's not just about the profit, it's about the trend as well. If the trend is diminishing, in a finance we say, that if something happens for one time, it may be a mistake. If that thing happens for 2 times, it may be a coincidence. But if it happens for 3 times, then it's a pattern. Now you can predict the future behavior as well based on this. Now, my friend, if you observe a trend that the profit percentage is continuously diminishing over a period of years, then even though you may have a good amount of profits at this point, still you will not pay the dividend because you know that we are at the diminishing point right now. Our profit percentages as well as the profits are continuously decreasing. So what are the trends in a profit? If the trend is upward, then even with the less amount of profit, you may afford to give good amount of dividend because you know that in the upcoming years, you are anyway going to increase the profits. So trend of the profit also matters. Liquidity. It's already 9:45. No, you will have the lecture at 9:50, I guess. Not many points are left. Only 3 to 4 are there. Anyway, we'll discuss it in the next session because otherwise you'll not get it. I don't want to do the injustice with these points. It must be discussed properly. Anyway, please put your enrollment number as a mark of your attendance. Just give me a confirmation that you have got everything till now. If you have any queries or questions, please let me know. Good. Thank you so much. Please put your enrollment number. That's it from my side for the day. See you all in the next session again with utmost energy and enthusiasm. Bye-bye. Take care. Sayonara.